Most of the world remembers Robin Williams as pure comedic chaos. A man who could fill a room with voices, characters, and jokes faster than anyone could keep up. But Sally Field, his co-star in Mrs. Doubtfire, saw a different man entirely. Behind the improvisation and the wild energy was someone remarkably attentive, generous, and emotionally perceptive. Years later, she shared a memory from their time filming together that revealed just how deep that sensitivity ran. A moment that had nothing to do with comedy at all. Sally Field and Robin Williams didn't meet at an award show or industry event. Their relationship began on a film set in 1993, working on what would become one of the most beloved family comedies ever made. The film told the story of a recently divorced father so desperate to stay connected to his children that he transforms himself into an elderly nanny to get back into their lives. Williams played the father, Daniel Hillard, who becomes the unforgettable Mrs. Doubtfire, while Field played his ex-wife, a woman trying to rebuild her life while protecting her kids. From their very first scenes together, there was an unmistakable spark. Field wasn't simply acting across from a famous comedian. She was working alongside someone who reinvented every take. He would run through a scene as scripted a few times and then, without warning, take off in an entirely different direction. New voices, unexpected lines, physical bits nobody had planned. It could easily have thrown a co-star off balance. Instead, Field leaned into it. Rather than trying to match his improvisation move for move, she let her character respond naturally in the moment, which gave their scenes a spontaneity that felt real rather than rehearsed. Working with Williams meant the entire production had to adapt. Because he rarely repeated a performance the same way twice, director Chris Columbus made the decision to shoot with multiple cameras running simultaneously, worried that a single angle would miss whatever unpredictable moment came next. Watching this unfold, Field developed a deep respect, not just for his comedic instincts, but for how seriously he took the work underneath the jokes. He wasn't improvising to show off. He wanted the story to feel honest and emotionally true, even inside a comedy. That mutual respect became the foundation of their friendship. Williams admired Field's ability to stay calm and emotionally present no matter what he threw at her mid-scene, and she admired his fearless creativity and his genuine investment in the story they were telling. Neither one tried to outshine the other. Their differing approaches, his unpredictability, her steadiness, created a natural chemistry that gave their scenes together real emotional texture. Beyond the working relationship, Field discovered something else about Williams. He paid attention closely, and that attentiveness showed up in a moment she carried with her for the rest of her life. While filming, Field learned that her father had died. She was on set near the mock courtroom used for one of the film's more emotional scenes. And rather than fall apart, she tried to push through, staying composed, focusing on her character, doing what a professional actress with decades of experience does. She didn't cry. She simply tried to keep working. Williams noticed almost immediately that something was wrong. He wasn't in character, and he wasn't joking around. He was simply watching her closely enough to sense her distress, even though she was working hard to hide it. He pulled her aside and asked if she was okay. When she told him her father had just died, he didn't hesitate. He insisted she needed to leave right away, and using his influence as both a lead actor and a producer on the project, went to Chris Columbus and had the day's shooting schedule rearranged so her scenes could be filmed without her. The rest of the cast and crew simply worked around her absence for the day while she left to be with her family. It wasn't a grand gesture or a public display. There was no speech, no announcement. He simply recognized what she needed and acted on it immediately. Field has described this as one of the most vivid examples of a side of Williams that rarely made it into public view. Someone deeply sensitive and intuitive who understood pain in others and moved to protect them without being asked. For Field, someone who had spent decades around major stars in Hollywood, that kind of instinctive compassion from someone so famous and so busy stood out. Williams wasn't just concerned with his own performance or the production schedule. He cared about the people around him as people, not just collaborators. Field wasn't the only one who experienced this side of him. By most accounts, everyone on the sets Williams worked on, actors, crew members, assistants, felt his warmth in some way. He made a habit of remembering names, asking people about their lives, and treating everyone with the same attention regardless of their role on set. Crew members have described him spending breaks chatting with the makeup and lighting team simply because he wanted to, not because it was expected of him. That generosity extended well beyond film sets. Williams co-founded a charity effort that raised significant money to support people experiencing homelessness, and he gave to causes involving literacy, veterans, and people with disabilities. He used his platform not just to entertain, but to quietly support causes that mattered to him, often without drawing attention to it. Field has spoken emotionally about the lasting impact he had on her life, expressing that the ache of losing him has never fully faded. Other actors who worked closely with him, including Al Pacino and Ben Stiller, have echoed the same observation. Beneath the comic energy was a man who felt things intensely and could sense emotion in others, even when it went unspoken. According to Field, most people only ever saw the fast-talking, high-energy performer. Few got to see the quiet empathy that, in her view, was just as central to who he really was. Unfortunately, the same sensitivity that made Williams so attuned to others' pain seemed to work against him when it came to his own struggles. In the early months of 2014, things had grown difficult. A television project he'd taken on hadn't performed the way he'd hoped, and it was canceled after a single season, a hard blow for someone who had spent a lifetime in the spotlight. At the same time, he was navigating a second divorce and a new marriage to Susan Schneider, trying to find stability while carrying emotional weight from the past. Then, in May of that year, he received a Parkinson's diagnosis. Devastating news for someone whose entire craft depended on quick thinking and physical control. He had already been dealing with anxiety and depression, and the diagnosis compounded those struggles. It wasn't until after his death that an autopsy revealed the truth. He hadn't been suffering from Parkinson's at all, but from Lewy body dementia, a severe and aggressive brain disorder that can cause confusion, hallucinations, memory loss, and severe mood disturbances. Those closest to him began noticing changes, increased anxiety, withdrawal, memory lapses without understanding the underlying cause. Despite all of this, he largely kept the extent of his suffering private, continuing to appear warm and engaged publicly while privately dealing with a confusing and frightening decline. On August 11, 2014, Robin Williams died by suicide at his home in California. The news sent shock waves through the world, and for many people who knew and loved him, it was the first real indication of just how much he had been struggling internally. Pain that rarely surfaced in the way he presented himself to others. His wife, Susan Schneider, later described the experience of watching his decline as something almost unimaginably cruel and unpredictable. A battle that had no clear symptoms and no clear hope for improvement. Tributes poured in from across the entertainment industry and beyond. One frequently mentioned moment involved his longtime friend Christopher Reeve. After Reeve's accident left him paralyzed, Williams showed up at his hospital room in character as an eccentric doctor, making him laugh for the first time since the accident, a reminder, in Reeve's words, that he was still himself. Colleagues like Jeff Bridges spoke of losing someone whose energy had touched everyone around him. Billy Crystal delivered an emotional tribute describing him as an unforgettable friend, while Whoopi Goldberg compared the loss to losing a part of herself. Even former President Barack Obama released a statement describing the many characters Williams had brought to life over the years, calling him singular in the way he had touched people